5 hindrances. Most of you have heard of Māra. Some of you don't know his name, but you all know him. He's the tempter. He tempts us into that which is apparently pleasurable. Māra came around when the Buddha was sitting under the bodhi tree on the verge of enlightenment. Obviously Māra is not some fellow with red flames coming out of his ears, trying to pull us into a hell realm. Māra is the temptation that sits in our own heart. If it's possible for the Buddha just before his enlightenment to be visited by Māra, have temptations arise in his own heart, what to say about us?
The difference is that the Buddha knew that this was Māra, temptation. He knew, and we very often do not. We rationalize and justify. I've seen a sticker on the back of a car that said, if it feels good, it must be right. A lot of things could feel good, possibly even killing a person might feel good at the time of doing it. The temptations that sit in our hearts are our defilements, our underlying tendencies creating havoc again and again. Because we don't like to admit that there is something within us that needs purifying, we justify it in any way we can. Sometimes people say, well, I'm supposed to enjoy myself, or this is the way I feel, so I must need it.
The temptations in our heart are there practically all the time, and because we don't recognize them, we are often in a quandary. We are being pulled this way and that. For instance, right now, we know it's better to hear Dhamma, but wouldn't it also be nice to go to sleep? If we were left alone, without a lot of people sitting here, it is quite likely we'd wander off to bed. Māra is there all the time. He is constantly trying to make us do what's most comfortable and creates more sense pleasures, without admitting that no real pleasure can ever come through the senses because it doesn't last.
The Buddha said that there are 5 mental states that are everybody's enemies, the 5 hindrances. We all have them, we are all tempted by them. The first 2 are the worst, with the heaviest consequences.
Sensual desire. The very first enemy is called sensual desire. It's a difficult one to recognize because it's highly approved of in society. Every advertisement, television commercial, department store, and shop window is geared toward arousing sensual desire. Indeed, the more people are able to gratify sensual desires with bigger cars, newer houses, and more beautiful clothes, the more successful they are considered to be. Since the gratification of sensual desire brings momentary pleasure, it has the appearance of being something good. If it feels good, it must be right, it has that false glitter about it. Nobody blames anyone for trying to gratify their desires. We don't even know we are doing it. It's quite amazing to be so unaware of what one is doing.
This is not the case with the second enemy, ill will, anger. It's the other way around. It's constantly being blamed. It doesn't bring any pleasurable sensations. Everybody tries to get rid of it. Sometimes, of course, we try to justify it. I had to get angry because he, she, or they acted in an objectionable way, but it is not approved of in society, and it doesn't create any pleasurable sensations, and therefore one doesn't have the mistaken notion that it is something good. Anger and ill will, dislike and resentment, rejection, fear, anxiety, none of these are pleasurable, and if one gets angry enough, it is deserving of blame.
Sensual desire creates some pleasure when it is gratified. Yet it is as much an enemy as anger or ill will. They are 2 sides of the same coin. As much as there is one, that much will there be of the other. Sensual desire creates craving, which is frequently thwarted. Ordinary people can't get all of their sensual desires gratified. The more of them one has, the more one feels that they go unfulfilled. Then one gets angry that one can't get what one wants. Nobody can have what they want all the time. It's impossible.
These are the 2 enemies that make difficulties for us in daily living, and they also make it very hard to meditate properly. If anybody has been wondering, I dare say some of you have, why concentration is so difficult to achieve, especially if you have just started to meditate, these are the reasons.
Sensual desire is the one that says, I'd like to sit more comfortably. Sensual desire is the one that says, I'd like to go to sleep now. Sensual desire says, I'd really like to talk. I'd really like to have a walk outside. It's too hot. I'd like to have a cold shower. I'm hungry. I want something to eat. I'm thirsty. I must drink. I'm not feeling comfortable, so I can't meditate, that's sensual desire, and it has something to say most of the time.
It will only stop talking when the meditation experience results in far greater pleasure than sensual gratification can provide, namely, the happiness and tranquility that come from concentration. Only then does sensual desire disappear for the time of meditation, not permanently by any means, but for that short period. Because we have our senses, because we are born with them, we want to feed them. Just as we want to feed the body, so we also want to feed the senses. We would become ill otherwise.
Before the first astronauts were sent off, one of the training methods used in America was the sense deprivation chamber, where there was no gravity and hence no touch sensation. It was soundproof and there was nothing to see. Everything was gray. Food came through a tube and was tasteless. The astronauts being trained were to ring a bell when they had had enough. I believe that the longest anyone lasted was 8 hours.
Food through the senses is necessary to us, and we are attached to it. That attachment gives us the illusion that this is the most important thing there is, that this is where our direction lies, seeing beautiful sights, hearing pleasing sounds, tasting good tastes, smelling good scents, having pleasant touch sensations, and thinking thoughts that please us. But that kind of direction in life, and every person who hasn't trained in Dhamma and meditation has it, cannot be successful. It's fool's gold. It glitters, but it has no value because it's so short-lived.
Imagine you were to eat an extremely good meal that tasted excellent, and you were to say, "This is very good." Your friend would invite you then, "Well, if it's so good, please, keep on eating. You can stay here and eat from now until tomorrow morning." What misery, mental and physical. The only way a meal can be enjoyable is if it lasts 20 or 25 minutes. On a very hot day you like to take a cool shower. You're enjoying the shower, and so you say, "Oh, this is nice. Now I feel pleasant and cool." Then your friend says, "Well, in that case, why don't you stay in the shower for the next 5 or 6 hours? Utter misery, isn't it? Nobody would ever dream of that. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maximum."
The same with every other sensual gratification. It's no longer a pleasure when it lasts too long. It becomes misery. Yet it's what the whole world is searching for, momentary sensual gratification. People even get drunk looking for pleasure, which is obviously not a pleasurable sensation once they are drunk. All searches for happiness through the senses that people attempt are doomed to failure.
The senses are nothing but physical manifestations, ears, eyes, nose, palate, body, that have a sense consciousness. There is nothing personal about them, nothing essentially wholesome or unwholesome. There's no good or bad karma being made through the senses. Bad karma is made in the mind when we want to keep and renew the sensual pleasure. Some people get their sense pleasures through activities such as getting drunk or even hurting others, drugs, or sex. These are very gross sensual pleasures connected with unwholesomeness. Others can find sensual pleasure in watching wild flowers, sunsets, listening to beautiful music. These are also sensual pleasures, but far more refined.
The misery arises from the fact that we want to own, keep, and experience the pleasure again and again. When people see beautiful flowers, the first thing they do is reach out and pluck them. Why not just leave them there for everyone to look at? No, I want to own that which is beautiful.
The enjoyment of the senses becomes more refined when there's more purification in a person. The smallest thing can be enjoyed, but the danger lies in wanting it. This wanting, the craving, brings the unsatisfactoriness because the wanting can never be fully satisfied. We're always lagging behind. There's always something more beautiful to be seen, something more to be heard or touched. There's always something else. This creates much restlessness, because we can never get total satisfaction.
Because we are not fully satisfied inside ourselves, we think that the fault lies with the object. There must be something more wonderful to be found. People search the world. It's very easy these days to go around this little globe of ours. All one needs is an air ticket. People go here and there in search of more excitement, new scenery, new experiences. Collecting experiences has become a fad. This does not satisfy either, because the experiences don't last. No experience one has ever had is still here. All gone. All memory. Nothing can be collected. It might be more useful to collect stamps than experiences. At least the stamps can be looked at.
Sensual desire was compared by the Buddha with being in debt. If you have a house and you owe money to the bank on that house, you have to go every month to pay off with interest. But in the case of the house, eventually it might be fully paid for. With sensual desire, there's no such thing as paying off the debt. Sensual desire arises again and again. It's never paid off. We get hungry again. We get thirsty again. We want to see and hear and taste and touch again and again.
The Buddha also compared it to a traveler who has gone on his journey without any provisions. He gets very hungry and thirsty. He sees a village in the distance and gets quite joyful, thinking, "Oh, there's a village where I can get something to eat and drink." When he gets to the village, he finds it totally deserted. An empty village. So he has to go on to find another village and again it's deserted.
The hope and anticipation of the gratification of sensual desire is that which makes it pleasurable. Once it has been gratified, it's already finished. And done with, and a new desire arises.
The Buddha also compared sensual desire with a pond into which many colors have been thrown. The passion of one's desire shows up in the many different shades that cover up the luminosity of one's mind. This is our difficulty. Because we are beset with desire, we can no longer see that there could be something else much more important. We only see the desire and we only see the possibility of its gratification. We cannot recognize ourselves anymore.
The Buddha gave several antidotes for this. The most important antidote is, first of all, to understand that sensual desire is an enemy that wrecks our inner household, creates fear that we may not get what we want, and enmity toward those who are getting what we want, envy, jealousy, states of mind that are so unpleasant, yet cannot arise unless we want what another person has. It's the only way these feelings can arise.
It's essential that one understands that this is the cause of our human problems, wanting the pleasurable sensations, wanting the comfort, wanting the gratification, often not getting them, and never being able to keep them. Letting go of wanting means letting go of dissatisfaction. But it isn't possible to do that overnight or just by talking or reading about it. It's a gradual process. The first step is to sit with an uncomfortable sensation. Not wriggling and shifting around, not trying to get out of this discomfort by changing position. There is no wriggling out of suffering. Suffering cannot be eliminated in this way. The only way out of it is to let go of craving. One can't wriggle out of craving. One really has to let go of it. So wriggling around isn't going to get us out of pain or dissatisfaction.
The comfort we lack in the sitting position gives us a wonderful opportunity to learn about our sensual desires. If we don't learn about them here, there is no other place we're going to learn about them. Nobody teaches these things, not in schools or universities. They're not taught in the home. Everybody's trying to be as comfortable as possible. Here we have a ready-made possibility of learning something about our craving, the cause of all grief. If you are sitting comfortably, there's nothing wrong. It's wonderful. But if you aren't, it's just as wonderful. You have a learning situation right here in your own legs or back or wherever it may be.
The desire for comfort, and the wriggling around trying to get it, is exactly what everybody is doing everywhere. People pay a lot of money for it. That's why people work overtime, go on journeys, search for entertainment, to wriggle out of discomfort. But it's a lost cause. Why identify yourself with a lost cause? Once you've wriggled out of one uncomfortable situation, isn't there another one arising within a short time? When one entertainment is finished, boredom may arise again. The right leg no longer hurts because you've moved it. Well, the left leg's bound to start. It's a lost cause. It's foolishness to identify oneself with a lost cause. It's much better to identify oneself with the Dhamma. The Dhamma has been proved to be right. Lord Buddha proved it, and all those who have become enlightened after him proved it. It's much better to identify oneself with that.
When your stomach growls in the afternoon and the mind thinks, I wonder if it's really necessary not to eat in the afternoon, or the mind goes back to your own kitchen thinking of all the things you could be fixing there. That's sensual desire. If the mind objects strenuously, then sensual desires got the better of you. But if you can look at the desire and smile at it and say, this is Māra in action, then you've seen Dhamma. It's no use listening to or reading stories about Māra. You have to know him as he operates, and he has no other place of operation except in every one of us. He's very happy there, having a marvelous time because we're always giving in to him.
One of the things that the Buddha advocated as an antidote to sensual desire is moderation in eating. And this is one of the reasons for accepting that precept of not eating after 12 noon. Moderation in eating doesn't mean eating nothing. It's eating enough to keep the body healthy. But this is a sensual desire that is easily gratified and one that arises again and again. For some people 4, 5, 6 times a day. If we are able to put a fence up against one of our desires, we are going to be able to put up a fence against some more. One fence can keep out many desires. So the one that's so easily gratified and arises so often is the one to start with, and that's what we're doing here, moderation in eating.
Another antidote that the Buddha advocated is not seeing the whole, but only seeing its parts. Most of you will know, or have heard, about the 32 parts of the body, which are often recited. In this very body, from the soles of the feet up, from the crown of the head down, surrounded by skin, full of these various mean impurities, there are in this body, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, membranes, spleen, lungs, large gut, small gut, gorge, dung, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, skin grease, spittle, snot, oil of the joints, urine, and brain.
If you feel strong desire for a person, instead of seeing the whole beautiful form of that person, remember that this human being is made up of many small parts, instead of becoming entranced with the outer shape, form, and color, which are only the gift wrapping. 32 parts of the body start out with hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin, so instead of watching the beautiful form, maybe just see the teeth.
There is a story about a monk, who was obviously an arahant, in the Buddha's time. A man and his wife had had a very bad quarrel and the wife no longer wanted to remain with her husband. She dressed herself up in all her finery, her best clothes, and all her jewelry, because she wanted to take all that with her. Then she ran away. The husband took off after her but couldn't find her. She had a head start on him. As the man was running along the street, searching for his wife, he met the monk. He went up to him and asked whether he had seen a good-looking, dark-haired woman in a red sari with lots of jewelry, earrings, and golden necklaces, who had come along the road in a hurry. The monk replied, I haven't seen her, but I saw a set of teeth going by.
For us that would be rather difficult, but it illustrates what the Buddha meant, don't see the whole, because people don't usually fall in love with a set of teeth. They don't get passionate about a set of teeth. When, for example, desire arises to have a beautiful new car that is enormously expensive, if one only sees the outer shape, form, and color, one may be tempted to get this wonderful new car and be in debt for the next 20 years. But if one realizes that this car is made up of a steering wheel, accelerator, air filter, motor, which has many screws and bolts in it, one might not be quite that passionately involved either with the car that only functions because its bits and pieces function, or with the person who only functions because his or her parts function.
A meditation practice for someone who has a great deal of problems with passionate desire is to look at those parts in him or herself. We're all made up out of the same 32 parts of the body. Nobody's any different. If we take the skin apart, we find the same thing in everyone.